All right, all right. Here we are again. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. If you're on the replay, if you for those live, good afternoon. Here we are again. Welcome to Divine Variations, Divine Discourses. Yes, we are here, my lovelies, my people, my divines. And so we're just going to go ahead and jump on in. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you. And let's talk about it. Let's speak about it. And let's be about it. All right, so for today, we are on Seed 4. Divine Variations presents Divine Purpose. All right, do you live with an awareness of divine purpose? And that's what that is what we will be speaking about today. And so, just to go over the virtual meeting protocols for those who are tuning in live, we want you to go ahead and rename your video so that I know what you would like me to reference you as. It can be your government name, if you will, or it can be whatever you want for the day, right? And so, what would you like me to reference you as in this moment? You can do that by the top right-hand corner of your video panel. Click on those three dots or click on participant list and then click on your name and select more and then rename. Also, please place yourself on mute so that there aren't any distractions or disruptions as we're going through this. And on the phone, *6 will mute and unmute you. Then also locate the reaction buttons and throughout, feel free to throw up the reactions, whether it's a heart or a thumbs up or clapping or dancing or celebration. There are a lot to choose from. So go ahead. And that really helps me to see what you're vibing with. And also, please send questions in the chat. You can send them directly just to me, or you can put them in for everyone to see. So when you click on the chat at the top, you can click on where it says other one, host and panelists, or just send it to my name. All right, so please stay, complete the survey at the end. I would love your feedback. Let me know how the information resonated. Let me know how the presentation was for you. All of your feedback is helpful and helps me to really cater and modify, customize the future discourses as well. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your feedback and your generosity of your time. All right, so Divine Variations. Here, we are all about educational, cultural, and artistic products and services that really facilitate transformation, inspiration, and self-realization, right? So everything we do, whether it's a production, whether we are doing a book reading or a engaging evening of entertainment, a workshop, a discourse, if you will, retreat. Everything we're doing is about inspiration, transformation, and self-realization. So feel free to connect with us on Linktree. You can find my online store where you can book speaking engagements, you can buy books and apparel, and many other things. So take a look at that, and I look forward to engaging with you more and more. And today I'll be reading from my book, Atonement. So for those of you who have it, feel free to go grab that if you want to follow along with the selections that I chose for purpose. And let's talk about the seed topics that all of the Divine Variations offerings really anchor these seed topics, from universal law all the way up to self-realization. So we had universal law last week, and then we have forgiveness. We don't do a discourse on releasing trauma, but releasing trauma is one of the seed topics in our workshops, our retreats, and a one-on-one coaching. And then we did a discourse on inspiration as well, because that's one of the seed topics. And then today, divine purpose. And then later this week, we'll be doing divine creativity. Next week, we'll be doing transformation and then self-realization. And so all of these are the seed topics that undergird all of our offerings. And so I invite you to engage with us. You'll find discourses on 7 of those 8 seed topics. And then in the workshops and the retreats and one-on-one coaching, we go over all of those, and in the courses as well. Here's our October calendar. We actually have a few more offerings for October. So let me share, got a little Southern accent in there. Let me share this updated calendar with you as well, where you'll be able to see some of the, let's see, which one is that one? You'll see some of the book readings that we're going to be doing as well. So for the rest of October, this is the calendar we'll be going over, and you'll see some of the atonement book readings. I'm recording my audiobook for atonement, and so I'm inviting people to tune in with me as I do that recording. And so feel free to register for those as well. All right, so let me go back to let me go back to sharing the other screen. All right, so that's the calendar of events. Now to get to what we're here for today, divine purpose, right? And so just to begin, you know, I like to start with a poll. I like to find out who's in the space and a little bit about what you're coming in with from the beginning. All right, so if you will go ahead and answer that question that came up for you. For those on the phone, sometimes you have to tap on your phone screen and bring up the poll. All right. And for those who can't see it, feel free to answer the poll in chat as I read the question out, right? Are you walking in your divine purpose? Yes, no, sometimes, I don't know, right? So the question is, are you walking in your divine purpose? And so you can answer yes, answer no, answer sometimes, or answer I don't know. All right, thank you for that. And so let me go ahead. I'm going to read a selection from Atonement to ground us, to evoke the intention for today's discourse of divine purpose. And so this first one that I am going to read is Out of the Distance. It can be found on page 115 in Atonement. And the section that it is in Atonement, the section is volume 3, Air, Contemplation, Determination. The seed sprouts. All right, so that's page 115. Let me put on my glasses so I can catch every word. All right. From out of the distance, I hear calling a new life. A warm and tender heart. The preparation for a rebirth. I am the seed of a new life. And out of the distance, I hear calling. A divine infusion, that which flows through the veins of creation. I am the sustenance of a new life. Out of the distance, I hear calling. Rooted firmly in the pattern of perfection, branching out in every direction, I am the tree of a new life. Out of the distance, I hear calling. Bearing a harvest of divine selection, feeding the soul of creation, I am the fruit of a new life. Out of the distance, I hear calling a new life. I am life. From out of the distance, I hear calling a new life. And so we just anchor in that thought. We just stand here in this very moment, calling forth a new life. No matter how good or how productive or how fruitful or how joyous our life has been, a new life with more joy, more fruit, more productivity, and more expansive a life, a more expansive life awaits us in this moment. And so we call forth that new life, living in divine purpose, the purpose that our Creator saw when it came forth as us. And so we simply say yes, as we open our minds and our hearts to receive. Thank you. And so with that, let's take a look here. So for those who have joined me in other discourses, you know that everything we do lays on top, is sitting on top of a foundation of universal law. And the 7 universal laws that we commonly speak about are those right there on that screen that you see. And so we speak about the law of mentalism, which is all is mind. Everything is stemming from a thought, from thought itself. And thought is energy. Thought, it holds vibration, if you will. And we'll get to that in a moment. So in correspondence, there's the law of correspondence, that between the different planes of existence, the spiritual, the mental, the physical, between all those planes, there is a correspondence of that reality. And then that principle of vibration, that everything in life is moving, is energy, holds a vibration, a frequency. And then the law of polarity, that within this experience, this phenomenal realm, there is duality, there are opposites, and that everything has an opposite, whether it's hot and cold, dark and light, right? Full and empty. Everything holds a polarity. And then the law of rhythm, the law of vibration and rhythm together, rhythm. So within that polarity, there's the law of rhythm, the movement between the poles, right? And you see that played out in your cycle, the seasons, you know, the cycle of night and day as it moves, you know, in the process of moving between hot and cold or cold and hot. Everything moves in rhythms and cycles. And the principle of consequence, or the law of cause and effect or consequence, that for every cause there is an effect, and for every effect there is a cause. There is no such thing as coincidence or chance, right? Everything has a cause. And when we are not aware of it, it's just deep in our subconscious, or we haven't been present to watch our thoughts so that we know from whence our experience has come. And then last but not least, the law of gender. And when we're talking about gender, we're not talking about male and female. We're not talking about the sexes. We're really relating to the root, Latin root of the word, which is to generate, to produce, to create. And so everything in life holds gender, the masculine and the feminine aspects, if you will, that which is the full and the empty, right? That which is the idea and that which gives birth to the idea, that which is the positive and the negative, and not right or wrong or good or bad. But really, when you think about the seed in the soil metaphor, when you think about the seed holds the pattern and the soil brings life to that, it nourishes it, right? And so everything in life holds gender. And so, and if you want more about those laws, we did a discourse on the law that goes in a little deeper to each one, you know, and talks about how it shows up, right? But we just state that now because everything that we're speaking about is undergirded with the law. So today, what are we speaking about? What are we sharing on? Are you living the divine purpose of your life? Are you aware that your life has a divine purpose? And the reality that a life lived without divine purpose, it lacks fulfillment, joy, and meaning. So if you find yourself in your life with less joy or less meaning or less fulfillment, it's because you're not connecting to the divine purpose for your life. right? Once we are centered and anchored in our divine purpose, we find joy and meaning and not purpose, but fulfillment, right? We find life fulfillment through fulfilling our purpose. And so looking at that, let's begin this conversation with a conversation of who are you? What are you? And oftentimes people relate to themselves as their body, but you existed before this body and you will exist after this body is laid down. You are divine expression of the creator, right? You are how the creator is feeling itself out, is knowing the experience of itself. You are one of the infinite ways that the creator gets to know the reality of itself. You are the creator expressing. You are divine. And so that is our anchoring thought about our reality that we just sit in right now in order to have this conversation about divine purpose. Because we can't have a conversation about divine purpose without really sitting in the fact that we are divine, right? You can't have what you're not being, what you're not giving, and you can only give what you've connected to having and being. So from that, let's explore the purpose of life. Let's speak about the purpose of life. And so from the paradigm that I sit in, live from, move within, in that paradigm, the purpose of life is, as I stated before, for God to know itself, for God to experience its infinite possibilities as creation, right? And in that purpose is everything sitting. In that purpose, you have every form of life expressing the divine creator's thought. And so within that, the purpose of life is to mirror back to itself all the divine possibilities that exist. The divine possibility of, let's take the six senses, if you will, the divine possibility of sight and sound and touch and taste, all of it, and those that I didn't name, right? And in that experience, that the human form, which has those five senses, is the highest of the creations of God, and is that aspect of God that consciously gets to become aware of itself as all of creation, right? We are that part that gets to see the beautiful sunrise and sunset. Just thinking about it, right? And we are that part that gets to hear the wonderful melodies of life, whether it is the natural melodies that just play as the birds sing, or the ones that we create with our voice, right? We get to hear, we get to taste the wonderful creations of God, of which fruit is so magnificent, right? And then the ones we create when we combine different flavors together. So all of those, we get to really experience God. And in relationship, we get to sometimes bump up against ourselves. And other times we can embrace ourselves or do a divine dance with ourselves, with God as us. And so I invite you into really anchoring in that awareness, in that understanding that the purpose of life is for the divine to know itself as divine, right? And so as we take on that as our purpose, because we are divine. So as we take on the purpose of life being so that the divine gets to know itself through, in, and as our life, what are we up to? Right? What does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that sound like? What does that walk like? And to take a piece from the course, what that reminds me of is really receiving the instruction of tell me, what will I do? What will I say? Where will I go? Right. And then what will I say and to whom? You know, I said those in a different order. You know, it's really where to go. Tell me where to go. You know, tell me what to do. Tell me what to say and to whom. And so we pause and really think in this idea of the fact that we didn't create ourselves, the fact that we are the divine expressing itself. And so we can receive direction in order to live out that divine purpose. And so we pause in that now to do that. And so let me walk us through looking at our divine purpose and looking at our ourselves and the purpose of life in a little bit of imagination, if you will, a little bit of bringing a vision forward, if you will. And so I asked the question, what would happen if, right? What would happen if you walked in the awareness that you are divine? What would happen if you walked in the awareness that everyone else is an expression of the divine, even when they don't know it, even when their actions don't reflect it, right? Even when our actions are not reflecting what we consider divine, because it's all actually an expression of the divine. Remember, all possibilities, infinite expression. And so here's where we call in some of that law, the law of vibration or polarity, the opposites. And so what we see is that through that infinite possibility of expression, there is the low frequency thought forms and high frequency thought forms and all in between, right? That are going to give different experiences or expressions of the divine. And so we really anchor in this thought, everyone, myself, and everything that exists is divine, is the expression of the divine. And so if I walk in that awareness, how do I live, right? In this moment, not concerned with what my neighbor's going to do or my family's doing, but what I'm giving. And so what would happen if I walked in the awareness that I am an expression of the divine who gets to consciously choose the experience that I am giving and therefore having, right? Giving and receiving. And so in that, you get to choose to walk in your divine, high vibrational purpose, the purpose that the divine saw for your life. And as you are watching your life, as you're watching it mirrored back to you and seeing the thought forms that you've been holding up to now, you may be called to release some of those thought forms. You may be called to release what you've been expressing in order to move higher, in order to feel that joy, that meaning, and that fulfillment, right? And so I am going to read another piece from the Atonement and inviting us into that new life that we evoked earlier. And in this one, the piece is called, let's read Thy Will Be Done. That's a nice one. All right. Let me tell you what page is on. Page 112. And 112 is within the same volume, volume 3, Air, Contemplation, Determination, the seed sprouts. So we are all in that contemplation and determination as we speak about purpose. Thy will be done. My mind holds only the thoughts I think with God. My every thought, word, and action has been infused with God's power and presence. Inhaling, receiving, The world holds nothing that I want. So why won't it release its hold on my thoughts? I take this moment to connect in God, to allow the Creator to pour through the sod. I'm chanting Om and the sacred names, yet all the while I have lists running through my head. What to do today? Still my mental body, I give it to you as you gave it to me. Soothe my emotions. I feel into you as you feel through me. Use my physical. Your wish is my command. Your will is my life. The very activity and presence of God gives birth, comes forth, shows up as I. I have no existence outside of you. The path I walk was laid by you. So why is my mind clouded with ambition, thoughts of getting ahead instead of deep inner realizations? I truly desire communion and nothing else. I want only what God is, the full realization and knowledge of self. I shed this mortal mind and all of its trappings. I step higher into the embrace of love's sweet essence. Now exhaling, giving. Full and overflowing. He who sent me is now revealing its presence. Contact has been made. Contact has been made. I'm ready for engagement. Thy will be done. Peace and blessings. Thank you. It's such an honor to live in my divine purpose and to bring forth, to really channel and bring forth as these different writings came to me, through being in connection and just the energy, and being able to be a transcriber of energy, that is part of my divine purpose. And so let's talk about that. Let's speak about that a little bit. Today I want to use more of my life and the example of my life and speak about how that shows up, So let me walk you through a process of how I came to rest in my divine purpose and how, how I connected to that. Yeah, someone text me, excuse me, please. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't anything that needs to get handled right in this moment. But so yes, divine purpose. So my life, I am one of 7 children. So I come from my own little village, if you will. There were 7 children, 4 boys, 3 girls. I'm the 5th of 7. And in that, I've always said, I used to say, I should say, in order to, be poor, you had to be rich, feeding, clothing, caring for 7 children is no small task, but it takes a village, And so through that process, I was reared by my dad from the time I was a little bit past 7. And so, from that time, is really when my memory kicks in. And I don't recall being really attended, but really being left to figure out life for the most part. In my household, we engaged in deep philosophical conversations, and all of this, let me anchor this conversation, all of this, and this is what I manifested from my consciousness. So I was not a victim of anything. This is what my consciousness manifested for my upbringing, and that's the reality of it and the blessing of it, right? And so within that, really attending to myself for a lot of my life, I put myself through college. I really went out to find information. Like even in high school, when I went to play sports, I had no idea how it operated. So I went and figured it out as I went along. And so there wasn't anything I was connected to in life necessarily. I was reared in Islam, but I wasn't necessarily connected to it spiritually. And so moving through life, there wasn't this passion or fulfillment whatsoever. Once I graduated high school, my mom got me a job working in the family services in Seattle. And I moved in with my mom once I graduated high school. So I'm going to just tell you my story a little bit here. And so working in family services, I was the first time that something really moved me other than basketball. I had a lot of fun with basketball, but it didn't move me enough to want more out of life, right? It was hard for me to stay eligible in high school to play ball. And it was not lack of intelligence, it was just lack of inspiration. And so once I got this job at family services, I saw something that I wanted to do. I was like, wow, like they are helping people. It was a counseling office. I was like, they're helping people's lives. And so in that moment, I decided to become a therapist. I had no idea what that entailed. So I just signed up for community college. And so after I was done with getting my AA, I said, okay, I want to be a therapist. And somebody said, well, you have to go to college, university. And so I was like, oh, okay. So then I went to the University of Washington, which back then, Seattle Central Community College, I don't know if they still do or not, but they had it where if you graduate from the community college system, you automatically get automatic enrollment into the University of Washington. So I was able to go into the University of Washington. And so after my 4 years in graduating with honors, I was like, okay, I'm ready to be a therapist. And in there, I had developed a relationship with one of my professors, and a professional educational relationship. And she stated, well, you have to go to grad school. I was like, graduate school? What is that? I had never heard of graduate school. And so in that, and it's the funny thing, I could have had a full ride scholarship and mentor if I went into a different field of psychology, but I had my eyes on becoming a therapist. And at that time, thought that the best psychology was clinical psychology. And so I went about finding a clinical psychology graduate school program. And so at that time, my purpose was to become a therapist, right? And so I went on that journey. And in that process, back when I was in community college, I got pregnant. And so once I got pregnant, I said, oh, life is real now. It's not just about me. Wait a minute. So I went through this whole process. I threw out a bunch of my music and changed my whole life, like everything. And it was just automatic. There was no strain. It was just like, no, I have to feel good about the life that I'm leading and giving to somebody else. And so in that, I sat down and like, what do I believe about God? And so I started my journey into God, because for me, that's where life, purpose, and truth resided. And so I started looking for something that was absolute. Nothing I had to justify, nothing that I had to excuse parts of. I was looking for the absolute. And so I went on my journey, and I went through a lot of different paths. And you can see that in this board game that I developed, Path of Divinity, where I really began to see how most spiritual traditions are really speaking the same thing, just in different words and different cultural realities put on top of it. And so, my journey of purpose was anchored in God and spirituality. And so in 97, when I got pregnant, had my first child, I began that journey. But then I went deeper into that journey with the birth of my second daughter in 2001. But then I really went deeper into that journey as I was ready to go to graduate school. I was pregnant with my second daughter when I graduated from the University of Washington. When I walked, my young daughter, and then I was pregnant, and we walked the stage. And so I was ready to leave Seattle, that's where I'm from, and really go deeper into my purpose. And so I, in 2004, left Seattle, went to graduate school in sunny California, and there really just going deep into the graduate school program. But there was this question in the back of my mind that said, what am I? Why am I a woman? Like, God doesn't make mistakes. I know this. And so there's a reason that I'm a woman. So not why am I a woman, but there's a reason, and I want to know that reason. But then also, what is the ego truly? You know, where psychology said one thing, but I knew there was something else. And then, so those were two of questions that were guiding me. But somewhere in my journey, I read the book by Paramahansa Yogananda, right? The Diary of a Yogi, and forgive me, is it autobiography of a yogi? I read that book, and what that book did for me was say, I want my guru. I had realized that I had taken myself as far as I could take myself, and I knew that I needed to call forth a teacher. And so moving to California, anchored in those questions of the reason for expressing as a woman and what is the ego, you know, I call forth my teacher, and I call forth, you know, the answers to both of those questions. And so within that, I got connected to being an expression of God and the purpose of life to express God, to know God, so that God knows itself and its infinite possibilities. And there's a whole lot in there, in that statement, of really understanding how life moves through the unconscious and subconscious, through the conscious and the superconscious, and how within us is all of that. And it's up to us to choose where we are going to dwell within all of that, you know. And so really being seated in my purpose, but I got seated in my purpose by listening, right? And I got seated in my purpose by wanting to have something to give that I really truly believed in, right? And so that was my walk, that was my process. And so I invite you into your process by, one, tuning into what's driving you, right? Is it ambition, as we stated in the poem that I just read? Is it ambition, or is it inspiration, right? And what's the difference between the two? How can you know the difference whether you're moving from motivation or inspiration, which we spoke about in the last discourse, right? And really the difference being between that external force or an internal calling. And so to rest in divine purpose, we must listen to the internal, our soul expressed through our heart. And the ways, there's different ways to recognize that voice, right? One, it's not about getting anything. It is not about getting, right? And you can hear that in my walk, right? What allowed me to activate purpose in my life, what allowed me to activate God in my life, was me sitting down saying, I have to have something to give. And in truth, the only thing we have to give is going to be that which resonates in our soul as the divine. And so I call you forward now, you know, whether you've been walking on that path already, or whether you are just beginning, or wherever you are on that path, I call you forward now in this moment to sit in a place of receptivity, to sit in the place of hearing the divine calling in your life for God to give through you, for God to give in you, for God to give as you, right? And so let's just take a moment as we listen and as we get ready to move in that. So let me share my screen again, okay? And I'm going to walk you through a process of looking at your life, right? And we want to look at these different areas of our life. Come on, let's share the screen. All right, here we go. And so I invite you to look at these 5 different areas of your life, right? Spiritual, creativity, relationships, health, and finances. And look at how you're moving in those. All right. So as you look at those different areas, you're going to look and see, are you trying to get something from them? Or are you giving something through them, right? Are you going to God, beseeching God to grant you all those other areas? Grant me favorable financial or favorable relationships or favorable health. Or are you going into the reality of God to anchor in the truth, in that energy, to bring that vibration forward, to bring forth the vibration that feeds everything else? And are you using your creativity to try to get something? Or are you moving in creativity to give? And the same thing in each area. So assess your life and look at those areas to see, am I moving from a source of motivation or inspiration? All right. And as you do that, I invite you to make some divine commitments. I invite you to look at where in the next 30 days, what 3 areas of your life do you want to take on to see this really come to fruition, to see this put into action, right? And so look at those 3 different, just pick 3 different areas. Pick one relationship over the next 30 days. Begin standing in that place in inspiration, not trying to get anything, giving, living from divine purpose, knowing that the reality is for you to express and to give according to the divine within you, right? So that's how we live from divine purpose, right? And there's going to be myriad ways that can be done. I can't sit here and tell you, right? I can just offer this process for you to call forth your divine purpose, for you to connect in how God expresses as you. Like in me, God expresses one that you're seeing now as a educator, right? A facilitator, an orator, if you will. God expresses in me as a writer. But it's not for the sake of writing. It's not for the sake of speaking or educating. It is for the sake of expressing God, of uplifting, of inspiration, right? And so the ways that God may express through you, you may be familiar with, or it may become as a surprise, a whole new way of expressing. But remember, the expression is not the cause. It is the effect. The substance and sustenance that God is not dependent on our activity, our articulations. It's not dependent on the effects, right? The effects come from the cause and carry that seed that is within that cause, right? And so I invite you to get to know yourself deeper. All right. And so within that, I'm going to share another piece of poetry with you all. All right, so from Atonement, we are within the Atonement. So this one that I'm going to share, let's see. Creative Impulse. And this one is on page 104. And so yes, if you have questions or comments, drop them in the chat and we're going to do a Q&A. All right. So this one is on page 104. And 104 is in air. Surprise, surprise. Air, contemplation, determination, creative impulse, page 104. An expression of God, life. A divine creative impulse to expand and extend and feel and see and know. Know that I know. It already is. I already am. There is no thing to become or to gain, simply to explore and to reveal or name. Oh, the thrill of realizing and accepting I am the divine creative impulse of life, sent from on high to shine forth a light so bright that life acknowledges life. All is seen aright. No convincing or debating or defacing. Pure, wholesome relating. The stream of consciousness that I represent comes forth in joy and uplifts. I accept who I am. I say yes to my life. I give of myself. Energy flows as me, coming forth sweetly, freely. Love emanates as all that is shown to be complete. The essence of life, the substance that sustains, maintains, and holds it all together. I let it be. Creative impulse, indeed. Whew, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for bearing witness to my gifts. Thank you for, being here. Thank you for all of that. And so we now move forward into the Q&A today. We move forward into this time where we get to, look at what I've been speaking about and relate through it. And so I see a couple questions in the chat. Let me put on my glasses. I try not to wear them all the time so that my eyes can get stronger on their own. All right. And so you see today it's all natural in my purity and my essence. I know, I'm so silly. All right, looking at the chat. Okay, so this first question, what we're looking at for divine purpose and relating to as the story that I told. And so for someone who is walking in the divine purpose and is looking for a community to go deeper into divine purpose, definitely call that community forward. Call that community forward. I invite you to be in community with me. I invite you to take a look at all that I offer, and really call forth your community. If that be me or someone else, call forth your community. Community helps, right? Community helps us to have like-minded individuals. Community helps us to know that we are being mirrored. Community helps us to have a place to really share and to give. You know what I mean? To have a place to give into. So yes, call forth that community so that you can walk in your divine purpose in a more expansive way, right? So thank you for that question. Secondly, when's the next discourse? Or you want me to share back the calendar again? And for those who may have joined late, I did share that calendar. So I will share the recording schedule that I have coming forward. And for those on the replay, all of these things you can catch on the store as well. And so here's the live recording schedule. Take a screenshot so that you can go on the Eventbrite or go on my link tree, Divine Variations, and see where you can get in touch with that, right? All right, so yes, we have recordings coming up. We have that, the recording for the Atonement book, some of what I was reading today. I'm going to be doing an audio book, so I'm inviting people to show up to the recordings. And the next recording, so today is the 19th, and so we have a recording coming up this Friday, and then we have one on Sunday, and then Tuesday and next Thursday. All right, so tune into one of those. And then the last week, On the 30th, we have atonement. And then we have on November 1st, the third part of atonement, and November 3rd, the final recording for atonement. All right. So thank you for that question. All right, one more question. I'll take one more question. Yes. How did my relationships change as I stepped into my divine purpose? And so as I stepped into my divine purpose, as I started to relate in life, knowing that I was a divine expression of God and that everyone else is, and my relationships are still transforming. That's part of our walk, our journey in life. So I'm not sitting here acting as though I am complete. I am whole, perfect, and complete, right? And I am still walking through my process, knowing who I am, right? And still revealing that in ever expansive ways. So I have relationships that all of my relationships are still in that transformational space. But how they have changed, I no longer manifest people in the way, showing up in the ways they used to, right? And I spoke on other discourses about how, like, the intimate relationships that I used to manifest with men, how they were different than what is manifesting now. Now I manifest men who are about self-realization, before that wasn't the case, and I manifest men who are being honest about what they want, and before that wasn't the case. I was manifesting something different out of my consciousness. And so that's one way my relationships have changed. Another, the main way my relationships have changed is I am participating in my relationships, not from a victim consciousness, but from a creator consciousness, from a God consciousness, knowing that the thoughts that I hold are simply reflected in my relationships. So coming in, knowing that as I give, I receive, right? And so my relationships have changed completely as I'm not looking to get something from my relationships. Right? Relationships are places we get to have fun, all relationships, whether they are familial, intimate partnerships, business, colleagues, all relationships, we get to have fun, we get to create, we get to give into our relationships. All right. So that is some of how my relationships have transformed. All right. So thank you for those questions. Let me just go into this final thought. We are at the space of a final thought. Ooh, yes. So what we've been speaking about today, a divine purpose, and really anchoring in a conversation of how we see that purpose, how we can walk in a more expansive awareness of our divine purpose, and how we can move through our life, our relationships, and our health, our finances, our creativity, our spirituality, rooted in divine purpose. And knowing that it's about that internal calling, that divine purpose is about God revealing God as us. And it's about being inspired, right? And giving. And so with that thought, I give to you today this divine purpose discourse. And I say to you, take this thought with you, see what resonates. As always, don't just take my word for it. Try it on like you'll try on something at the store. If it fits, wear it, right? Walk in it. If it doesn't fit, leave it where it is, right? And so take what you will, receive what you will today, and see how it fits in your life. All right. I thank you all for being here. I thank you for the blessing of your life. I thank you for the blessing of your time. And we move forward. And so I'm going to, in a moment, share a survey. So don't drop off, right? I'm going to share a survey. I appreciate your feedback in advance. And for those who are catching the replay, email me some feedback, right? Email me some feedback to nubia.thedoorway@gmail.com. Nubia, NUBIA.thedoorway@gmail.com. And so I invite your feedback. For those who are live, stay on so you can take this survey. And so I thank you. You can find more information and inspiration. That was correct. Thank you. You can find more inspiration at our Linktree, Divine Variations, where you can book speaking engagements. You can sign up for workshops and courses. You can purchase books and apparel when you click on the store link. We have the Atonement book. Soon, once the audiobook is done, we'll have the audiobook up there as well. We have 2 children's books. I Create and It's Good, where I create, where we have to keep our children rooted in this conversation of remembering, right? Because they come in knowing, and we can foster an environment that helps them to remember. And so I Create really speaks to our children and reminds them that they are creators, right? And then It's Good reminds them that they and what they create is good. All right, so those are the books that are available as of this recording. By the time, if you're watching the replay, there may be more books up there. I am working on 2 more children's books, so stay tuned for those wonderful additions to the Divine Variations courses. So I thank you for your time today. And for those who are on the replay, I bid you have a most glorious and blessed day, revealing the divine as your life. All right. And so I'm going to just stop the recording